Welcome to a new episode of the Derdack podcast, the podcast on reliable alerting for critical systems. Today, with Frederik, founder and CEO of Shuffle. Shuffle is an automation platform for the cybersecurity space and created for and by the community so that anyone has access to important knowledge and information. Frederik will share his vision of companies working in the space and the importance open source plays in it all. He will also talk about challenges in the industry and how the human factor leads to the importance of partnering with companies like Derdack and solutions like SIGNL4. Enjoy listening.
Hey, Frederik, thanks for joining us today and for being part of our little podcast show. I'm very thrilled to chat with you. So I'll just pass it right over to you. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello. Thanks for having me, first of all. I'm Frederik. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Shuffle. And what we do is we do security automation. So that is, we focus everything in and all our attention towards finding good tools out there and helping security teams connect them together in the best way possible. And right now we have a community of like 1,000 people talking about it, and we have like 3,000-4,000 people that have been using it over time and solving a lot of their security problems. We are also doing this in an open source way, so we have a few 100,000 downloads of everything, which is also amazing, and which has led to a lot of feedback and a lot of like product improvements. And coming from like a developer background and getting into cybersecurity is an interesting point because you see everything the way of how you can automate it, And so over time, I've worked at like these service provider places, and I worked in-house in security teams, and we ended up in both places where I was like the go-to guy for automation and for cybersecurity infrastructure building and stuff like that. And so it was natural to kind of just start my own thing.
You did this in different places too, right? So you have quite a bit of an international footprint, because I think that's important to understand, particularly when it is about security, cybersecurity, that this is a global topic, and that people can argue. I just listened to one podcast that we did a little while back with one of our Australian customers, and I know that in Australia we're always faced with specific regulations, and they call it the Essential 8, I want to say. So there are specific security requirements that you have that need to be put into practice, and so I assume you were exposed to quite a bit of that, because you don't just do what you do overnight. So that'd be great to chat a little bit about that.
We deal with markets around the world as well, just due to focusing on this global expansion and not necessarily focusing on a specific region, but instead focusing on a very specific team and their needs. And being open source and being kind of open about everything that we have, you do indeed get exposed to that. And examples of that go into like the everything in the US that's going on with new regulations over there. That I'm not too familiar with the details on everything, but the thing that happens is that thankfully I have good people on the team who are working on that in the US who can handle it. But then there's also the same privacy and security laws coming into place in Europe, where I'm from. So I'm in Norway, and as you mentioned, I've also lived in Japan while building out Shuffle, and just seeing the difference in how people are tackling security issues in different places has been really interesting. Now the policies are really strict in Europe, thankfully. So I've been I've seen the worst of it, and then all of the other places kind of like tagging along over time and maybe adding some things on top. But usually we've found that as long as we're compliant in Europe, it's been pretty close to compliant everywhere, and helping other companies actually stay compliant that way too.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, what would you say, like from your experience, make the difference in efficiently operating a SOC? So is there some elements that while you were building Shuffle, or just from your experience, that stood out? You mentioned it yourself. You ended up being the central go-to guy from different aspects, but it was all about automation. But maybe we can chat a little bit about that, because I'm sure that's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, so this is also an interesting thing about having the kind of company that we run that focuses on automation, because we kind of see everything. We see everything from companies that have tried to build a SOC with 2 people up to like the ones that have like 30 to 50 people on staff 24/7 running globally, right? Or maybe more, right? Just in the SOC itself. And then on top of that, all the incident response parts of it, and how you actually deal with the incident after the fact, because the reality is that a lot of the issues that people find, right, are low-hanging fruits that are very easy to deal with when you think about it from an automation standpoint. But a lot of the issue comes down to like, are you able to collect the right information from the right sources, right? And that's what we focus on. We don't focus on the human aspect as much. We focus more on the technology and figuring out how to use the technology the best way possible. And so as a part of that, we had to come up with a way to help these companies that we work with solve security problems immediately. And the typical issue that always shows up, no matter where you are, who you are, how big or small a team is this thing about like alert fatigue and dealing with the same tickets over and over, because it leads to so many job losses and basically people getting disinterested.
Yeah, and then you miss the really important things. I mean, we hear this a lot too, and this is why we're in this together, because we realized this early on, that it gets really frustrating if you either have to sort through too many things and don't see the important stuff because they all look the same, or like you said, you get the same things over and over again, and you feel that you already addressed them, but here they come again. So that's where we come in as Derdack, and which is why we're so thrilled to partner on this together, because I think that with your expertise on the things that are important to your customers and working efficiently, and our expertise, and then making sure, and you said it yourself, you don't focus on the human aspect as much, but we do, because we want to make sure that the people actually can act when something important happens or something critical happens, and that's where we come in with SIGNL4. So that's great. So I'm very thankful for that opportunity.
No, but that is the amazing thing about partnering with companies such as yourself, right? And how we can work together to solve these problems, because that allows us to focus on how to use your tool to solve the human problems, where you are the ones interacting with the humans more, while we are the ones helping set up how the humans interact with the tool. I'm just thinking about the thing of there are quite a few tools that are necessary to do things, and there are human aspects to it, where the thing we do from the Shuffle side is we focus in on basically making those signal very strong, because if you can make a good signal towards alerting people when there is something really bad happening, and that doesn't happen too often, then they will be really prone to actually handle it properly when that comes up. Which is it's a very tough challenge. It's a tough challenge, I would assume, from the side of the ticket handler, as well as the automation engineers and everyone on the security team. I would assume you have some insight on that as well.
Yeah, it's always, I mean, it's great if the information, so we call it event source, right? When we say, like, Shuffle would be our event source, where we say if something critical really happens and it needs to be communicated out to the humans, let's just stick with that, because that's going to be our flow through it. Then it's nice to know that the information that your platform provides is detailed enough for people to act upon it, because we will then make sure that we find the responsible person. And again, all of that fully automated, because the manual latencies you want to try and take out, particularly when it is about security incidents, because you generally need to act very fast on those, right? So you don't have a lot of time to go and find the engineer that can come and fix it. And it can be simple things. We've had all kinds of things from customers, including just really people leaving the company but they never got taken out of the AD, and they were still getting information, and it was confidential information, and that led to a security breach that got a lot bigger than people were anticipating. We always think like, hey, it's something exploding, or it's like we have in SIGNL4 in our platform, we have some of these great ringtones that customers always refer to, and they say some of it sound like a nuclear war. But honestly, if you choose your ringtone, so you can customize it, but you want to, when something comes in, you really want to be alerted. You don't want to just get a nice sounding little bird tweeting, because that might not be what triggers you to jump, because you might have to jump. This is just what this is. And your company's IP, your everything, your policies might be at stake. So it's all about the speed. So the better the information is that we get from people like yourselves, that faster the humans can act, because we'll make sure we match that information to the humans, right? So there is a lot of benefits there that I can see, and that's why I think Shuffle and SIGNL4 here is a real winning team for people really looking at a full loop and circle, as we call it.
I totally agree. There are so many aspects to that of just working together with the right teams and working together with the right technology that helps it so much. And one of the things we have seen on the open source side that people have struggled with a lot has been this thing about how do they actually reach their team in time when something really bad happens, right? Because they might not have technology that can call them, and calling might not be enough. That's also a thing, right? Where a thing about mobile apps, for example, is that they allow you to kind of bypass all those silencing pieces of a technology. And so having that actual app on the phone helps a lot, because again, that's on the open source side. People do not have that technology available because we don't focus on it. And the same thing goes at Shuffle, right? We don't focus on building app technology for a phone because we don't have to interact directly in that same way. And so that is one of the winning pieces, I would say, here, where there are just a few providers around the world that does this well. It's actually very hard to build a technology that can sound that nuclear bomb when the nuclear alarm, even when something properly happens.
Yeah. And then again, you mentioned it already that, automation, we always talk about automation and how important automation is in the process. But I think automation means a little bit of something different for every single person. So maybe we can retract to that and just talk a little bit more about, the process as such. So what is it that you would say you feel about this is something unique that you're providing to the customers in that area? Because automation, as we know, it takes out all these latencies and it makes the whole process very smooth. But what does that actually mean when you're on the ground?
So I can tell you that we have been working on this for a while already. I did this before as well. So what I started with when I started building it, and now with the team, right, is we are focusing very heavily on these, again, low hanging fruits. How do we get this tier 1 analysts or level 1 or whatever name you have for them up to level 2 as fast as possible, because those tier 1s might not exist anymore because we can handle those, right? And there's a framework to this that we have focusing on 4 pieces, like 4 kinds of use cases, essentially, which goes into collection, enrichment, detection, and response. And those 4, as long as you're able to kind of handle those properly, and that means collection is just like, how do you get the data from the SIM that you have that can connect to just a few pieces of technology usually, and get that into the ticketing system that you are dealing with, and how on the way there do you actually handle it properly by enriching it, right? So there are that's just like the starting phase of it. How do you just solve those immediate problems as people come into it? And what we've found is that these use cases keep expanding, right? There are just more and more people coming into it. And so the thing that we're actually launching next week is a creator incentive structure where we think we are not smart enough by ourselves as a company. that's why you partner with people, right? You work with people to solve things. And so what we have done over the last year is we've built technology that is focused on getting creators around the world that work in cybersecurity to build and share things through Shuffle. And it's open source, like everything they share is open source as well. And so they get all the benefits of owning that, owning what they have. And then they earn from what they are actually sharing. And this is one of like the cool things that I think in cybersecurity is very important, because sharing is everything. It's using information from other companies to or other people, researchers, etc., and taking that in to solve problems. So next week we'll have this release of a creator incentive structure that allows people to actually earn based on what we are doing. And what we hope to do with this, right, is to have more and more of these automation use cases solved by other people than ourselves. It's a structure to find people who are smarter than ourselves to solve even more of these problems, so that we have focused on the basics of the basics in a way, like the number one things you need to solve in cybersecurity. But then what's next? There's just an ocean of both tools and use cases that you can solve. And truth be told, you do get into a lot of non-cybersecurity use cases as well as soon as you start doing that. You start doing IT, you start doing marketing, maybe you do some CRM and sales stuff, and like it expands very rapidly, even though it's not necessarily cybersecurity anymore.
Yeah, and you have this, I think, in your vision statement or mission statement too, about the sharing aspect, that nothing should be a secret in cybersecurity, because you kind of inform each other, which I assume is the very reason you went open source with it.
That's right. The open source aspect is so important. It's just get it out there and help people solve problems immediately. But the problem there as well becomes like a lot of this technology, you might not trust it because it's open source. You might not have any support people behind it. Yeah. And so we find it extremely important to just have a support team that's actually answering email or answering tickets that come into us from everyone, and having these different community channels that also help people solve problems on the fly. And in the last 2 months, I think more than 50% of all the answers have been from other people than ourselves, which is very good. We can work less, but we need to figure out how over time can we work with those people better.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's what I hear most from our customers when we mention open source. It's like, yeah, but what if, I find a great technology and then I have no one that actually knows how to handle it if I run into issues? Because when you do think about the automation aspect, and again, security being such a process or such a topic where you need to respond really fast. So speed is important. And then again, the automation is important. But if the automation doesn't work or it fails for whatever reason, then you're coming back to, hey, have we missed something, right? So it's always like different layers and different aspects. And again, there you can build so many things. You as a developer will know that you can build so many redundancies, but ultimately you need to match the machines with the people, and the people need to come back and trust other people, because people will still rely on people, right?
And that's actually a thing we've done a lot with ticketing and case management systems, where we have made them into also systems that can help decide what to do next, right? Where we might add a button in there. Maybe it's in HTML or however, but it's in some technical manner where we add a button in there for the analyst or for the person something happened to, where they are a part of the automation, right? Where half of it might be just running some automation to get some data somewhere, but then maybe you want to block something, maybe you want to isolate a machine or something like that. Then how do you get to that point of actually isolating it? Do you want to do it automatically? Some people do if it's like a high severity, but what if it's like a low severity or low chance of being something malicious? Are you sure you want to actually isolate that machine in that case, to lose all that time for that person that is in it? Then you can decide kind of how do you want to interact with them, where most companies also have these communication channels around Microsoft Teams, right? Like we're talking about right now. And they might have Slack in place, or Discord, or like all of these different WebEx as another one, different tools that they use to communicate. If we can use those tools the best way, we do typically end up asking the actual user whether the thing happened, not the analysts, so that you can make the people who it's happening to a part of the process itself. Because if you make it then into if this is where we start focusing on the human element a little bit more, right? Where if you can ask them in the right way, did you travel to Australia last night? And they were maybe in the Philippines the day before, right? And that is possible. But what if you ask about, and it took like 8 hours to go from Europe to Australia? Then that's like an impossible travel problem all of a sudden, where all of a sudden something happened in Australia. It shouldn't have been possible. How do we verify that process? Whether we should do something about their account in that case. And so there are all these ways you can interact with cybersecurity and involve the people it actually impacts as well, and help them decide what should happen next.
Yeah, because I guess it boils down to how good your decision is or can be based on the information you have. You mentioned it initially that what you're trying to do is like really enhance and enrich everything so that people are as informed as can be, but there will still be certain human elements that you might have to verify. It could be something like you just mentioned where you just want to check in with someone to see if they did indeed travel that route, or you might need approval from someone, because if you do isolate something, then you might not want to make that decision by yourself. And again, that's where if you have something like what Signal4 provides, that's where we can help, because that's what we really focused on when we say, okay, we want to give people the chance to collaborate if they need to. We want to make sure that they don't get tired.
Yes.
Because we want to make sure that when they do get a nuclear alert, that they really need to address it, right?
Yes.
And then find the people maybe that they need from a different team, but they don't know who's going to be on call. So we also encompass all of that, the whole scheduling piece here, and have the same challenges like you do. So we rely on the information that we receive, and then we try to automate as much as possible. But ultimately, we will still verify if need be. And then every single time, the processes are going to get easier and smoother because we've learned more. We understand more because we know that if that incident occurs, then this is what we have to do. And that's the same for you.
I think we're getting into an interesting aspect of like new technology nowadays compared to 10 and 20 years ago as well now, where it's like you don't want to do the same thing over and over, and you want the technology to help you not do that, right? Where the technology itself should help you understand that, oh, this has happened before. We saw something very similar to this. Maybe it's the same user, maybe it's the same source that it came from. And the technology has to get smarter and smarter. And this is a very interesting thing on our side as well, where we get data from, I don't even know how many sources at this point. But I know we have like 3,400 integrations. That's like a thing. But we can say around 10% of them are where the main information comes from. That's a lot of information to train detection engines on as well. And so we have focused a lot of our time on actually building AI and machine learning systems into this as well, and figuring out how do we actually help you escalate or de-escalate things if we have seen them. Now, this is not something like that we are providing properly for the open source side yet. We are working on it very heavily for the cloud version that we have, like our software as a service offering, just due to it's very hard to build something like that open source. And it's very hard to provide that level of or that type of service in an open source way. But yeah, it's one of the things that I really see as a big impact. It's going to have a larger and larger impact over the next few years.
Is there anything that you would say are like best practices that you have seen, or like tips or recommendations that you would give to anyone trying to have the best breed of a cybersecurity practice and use the best components? Or you had this beautiful way of saying, hey, we first want to detect everything, then we want to enrich it, and we want to automate it. So have you come across anything that you want to pass on to the audience?
Sure. So there's the thing about how SOCs are usually started or how they are usually built out, where you find a SIM and then you just get started. That's what we see the very most. It's you find a SIM and you get started. But then immediately as you become kind of halfway successful or get your first customers on board, then it's all of a sudden a team that's supposed to work on it. And the thing is, these SIMs are not really built for teamwork. They're built for alerting and log aggregation. That's it. And one of the things we always like, it's one of the big buttons we have during our onboarding as well, which is what is the tool that you need to have to work together as a team to solve something when it's more than one person, which is you need a case management system. You need some way people can interact, whether that's a shared mailbox or whether that's a tool like SIGNL4, right? It is a way to work together to solve problems. And those shared mailboxes as well. I've been through hell with that. It's you work as a team and you try to tag what you've handled and mark things as unread and stuff, and it's just not working long term either. And so getting everything into a single place for a team to work together is by far and away the number one. And then over time, you can reduce the amount of noise that you actually put in there.
Yeah, I agree. So it's with everything that's going on, our heads are spinning no matter what. And the more technology can kind of like take off our shoulders, the better. So I think that's the bottom line and a great conclusion of our little show here today. Unless you have something else to share, I'm very happy that you made the time to do this with us, and I hope we'll see great things happening. And I'm excited to see where Shuffle is going to go and what we can do together, and what our customers will help us, grow on, because that's ultimately the goal for any company, that the customers will help you to grow your solutions and yourself and understand things even better.
Absolutely. I think that's a great conclusion.
Thanks a lot, Frederik, and have a great day.
You too. Thanks for having me.
That was Frederik and Doreen talking about the market of cybersecurity and some best practices and recommendations for your security automation initiatives. More about Derdack and SIGNL4 can be found in the show notes or on signal4.com. Until next time, stay alerted.